Can't believe it, we actually made it. We made it to the next series. Don't ask me how, but welcome back to Drywall with Kenny. I don't even know where to begin, but I guess we gotta begin somewhere. So first and foremost, I wanna just thank everyone who followed us on the first coat video series. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how it was gonna go. The reception and the way it went down was overwhelming. We had great comments. The goal is we're helping people, right? The comments were phenomenal. And there were also some negative comments and some nasty comments, but we just kind of pushed those aside. Our goal here is to help, right? Let me emphasize the fact that these videos are designed for beginners. These videos are not designed for people who have been in the drywall industry for 50 years and still taping. God bless you out there for those guys who are and who have made comments. This is also what I'm showing people is what has worked for me over the course of my career. I am by no means sitting here telling people that this is better, this is worse, do it this way, don't do it that way. Everybody else has their own methods, which is wonderful. And let me also emphasize the fact that once I show you the beginning techniques, you're not gonna tape like that forever. This is just to get you started. You're gonna eventually find your own groove and what works for you, right? Maybe you don't use the 6-inch knife. Maybe you use a smaller knife to put the compound on. Maybe you don't, like I'm showing you what works for me, okay? And has worked and continues to work, right? I'm on the job every single day. These techniques still work today. So again, thank you for your patience. Welcome back, Drywall with Kenny. We're gonna get into the second coat video series. Before that, I wanna do a quick recap on some of the things that I think that were really, really important, and just to give some clarification on how I proceed with these videos. And I got my little recap book here, so bear with me if I keep going back and forth. Guys, this is a set that I built in my garage, in my home, all right? This is not a job site. That's why there's cross butts, 3 feet. That's why there's cross butts, 3 feet. That's why there's cross butts, 3 feet. This is a little set designed for demonstration, for teaching. This is not a whole house. We're not hanging 12-foot boards. Back in the day, we hung 16-foot, 5/8, 54-inch board. We're not doing that here. We're teaching beginners how to tape. This was the easiest and simplest way to show people how to get started for beginners. Let's go into a few of the things that people got really irate about, but I want to clarify it. Pan versus hawk. I don't care what you use. I don't care if you get the compound out of your goddamn pocket. I don't care. You want to use a pan, use a pan. You want to use a hawk, use a hawk. You want to use a chair or a compound cover, use the compound cover, dude. I don't care how you get the compound on there. The hawk works for me. I've been using it for years and years and years, and it works for me, okay? Use your pan, use a shingle, I don't care, right? So I just wanted to clear that up. I'm not here telling you that the hawk is better. I'm not here telling you the pan's better. I'm not here telling you any of those things. Use what's comfortable for you, what you like, and that's what's most important, right? That's one of the topics. Let's talk about one of the biggest controversies that we found on the tape, the front and the back. Listen, man, I don't care if you put the tape on backwards. If you've been doing it for 40 years and it works for you, good for you. What I'm trying to emphasize here is that there's a front and a back to the tape, okay? Will it work both ways? Sure, it'll work. Do you want to take the chance? And my point is does a beginner want to take the chance when they're learning that if they put the tape on backwards, there's going to be an issue? No. Let's start from the beginning, the correct way. I want to just grab something real quick. Bear with me. And I'm going to you know, I really do talk about things from experience. You know, we were doing a 500 board house back in the day. This is 25 years ago. I hired a guy, he came in, he put the tape on backwards. Well, the tape did project, all right, especially on the cross butts. The crease popped out and it created havoc and problems on the job site, all right? We went around and we had to fix it. That's how I learned. That's how I learned from the mistakes, okay? So, you got my phone here. Let's just, again, I'm gonna leave you with this. Just for all the controversy and everybody who's out there jumping down my throat, there's a front, there's a back. There is a front and a back. Does it matter how you put it on? I don't know. If it works for you, whatever. For me, this is what works. And I'm going to read you a summary from USG, okay? And the summary states, while you can use either side in a pinch, placing the roughened and crease side against the mud ensures the best adhesion and performance, okay? That's from USG. That's what they say. I didn't make it up, all right? You want to put it on backwards? Continue doing that. Good for you. I got a lot of comments. I don't want to reference the comments. We talked about that. We're not here using bazookas. We're not using second coating boxes. We're not using flushers. We're not using corner rollers. We're not using any of that stuff. This is a hand tape process for beginners, okay? Guys, God bless you out there that is still doing 500 board homes with the machines. Good for you. You know what I do now? I go in and I fix those houses. Later in my career, I learned how to work smarter, not harder. I understand now, after reading everyone's comments, and I realize the fact that lingo, tools, and things are not the same in each part of the country, all right? I just assumed, and you know what they say about assuming, right? Makes an ass out of you and me. We all understand that. I'm in the Northeast, guys. I've never seen a box of compound. I've never seen one. We work out of buckets. They're sold in buckets, right? That's why I was referring to the buckets. Mix the buckets. If you're in, you know, the West Coast and you use boxes, good for you. You still got to mix it and you still got to add water to it for whatever coat you're applying that day, okay? So if anybody got offended about the buckets and the boxes, I apologize about that, all right? And how about the biggest controversy? The mud and the compound. Call it mud, call it mud, call it mud. I don't give a shit what you call it. I just don't care. I call it compound, all right? You call it mud. I say mud, I say compound. Call it whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. That's all I'm saying. You don't get this big from not eating, all right? Anyway, whatever your preference is, both of them work. I say compound. I think when I write up invoices for the jobs, I think compound sounds a little bit more professional, so I put that in my proposals and my quotes. That's a business kind of mentality that I have, to sound a little bit more professional. And I don't want you to take that the wrong way. When we're talking on a job site, it's always mud. Professionally, we say compound. I use both terms. Don't crucify me, all right? How dare you call it compound? It takes too long to say. Imagine, now we're worried about how long the words take to say. And here's the other one that I just love. It's just great. The inside corners, right? They're not corners, they're angles. Everybody's jumping down my throat. They're angles, they're corners. Listen, the way I learned and the way I was taught in the union, back in New York City, they're inside corners. That's how I refer to them. You want to call them angles? Call them angles. I'll leave you with this though. And probably everybody can reference this quote. Nobody ever said once, nobody puts baby in the angle. Nobody puts baby in the corner. Remember that one. I mean, you know, the brain is focused to concentrate on the negative comments, whereas I should also mention, you are correct. Like the amount of positivity and the amount of people that have reached out to me, asking questions, saying thank you so much for putting into terms where I can understand. I now understand. I now have the confidence to go ahead and do it. I just bought a new home. I had a guy reach out from across the world saying he just bought a 2-bedroom cottage. He's going to attempt to do it now because he has the confidence to do it and he understands it better. That's my goal. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to give the first-time homeowner, beginner, DIYer the confidence to go out there and attempt to do it themselves, right? Take pride in what you're doing, understand the process, and I always respond by saying, when the why is powerful, the how is easy. Understand the why. A lot of people know how to, they know the how, but if you ask them, they don't know the why. And that's the importance of these videos. So I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart, really, for embracing the fact that these are beginner videos and that I'm out there helping people. The comments have been wonderful. I'm very, very excited that I am helping, and the comments are telling me that. And that's kind of what pushed us to continue with the videos. The first video came out, we were like, well, let's see what happens. If the response is great, we'll continue. If it's not so great, we won't continue. We'll have to evaluate, because everything is, you know, proof of concept. We're trying to figure it out too. We're trying to figure out what helps folks the best, okay? And I know that me talking and blabbering on doesn't help the best. So let's get down to some activity, all right? If you guys recognize this set, I built this set, like I said in the beginning. We first coded it in the first video, right? Another thing, let me just clarify how I was taught and what works for me, and so people understand, okay? You see this tape, this tape, this tape, corner tape, seam tape, cross butt tape, okay? Corner bead. This, to me, is considered the first coat. There was a lot of questions like, what's the first coat? This, to me, is the first coat. This is how I reference the first coat and or rough coat, okay? When I learned, it was like, who's going to be roughing today? Roughing meaning the first coat. Kind of like, even look at the other trades, right? When an electrician goes in, he's going to rough out the job. That means they're doing the preliminaries. The plumber, he's going to rough out the job. It's the same idea. So I wanted to clarify that. The tape, to me, is the first coat. So now we are going to do the second coat. And we're going to proceed as follows. If you remember, and you went back, go back to the YouTube videos. These shorts and the smaller videos are designed to drive you back to the YouTube video. Follow the entire process and you get a better understanding. If you jump into some of the short reels and stuff like that, you may get a little confused because, you know, you're in the middle, you may not see the process. So my recommendation is to always go back to the YouTube video, get to a point where you need to look, reference, and then jump to the shorts. That's kind of how it's designed. So if you kind of look, go back and look, in the beginning of the YouTube video, we showed you how to mix and the types of compound, right, for each specific coat. So if you have questions about that, you're going to need to go back to the beginning of the YouTube video. Find that. But second coat, a little bit of water. First coat, more water. Shrinkage, the more water you add, the more it shrinks. Second coat is the heaviest coat. We don't want to add too much water. We want to add just enough where it's manageable on whatever carrying tool vessel works for you. Could be a pan, could be a shingle, could be a piece of 2x4, could be a hawk, whatever works for you. Okay? We'll go real quick. I got to mix this bucket up, so I figured we'll just include it in the video. We could always take it out. My little contraption I made, everybody commented on that too. They love it. I got a patent on it, so nobody try to duplicate it. That was a joke. That was a joke. Easy now. Here we go. There's going to be some torque behind the full bucket. You're going to want to use a proper mixing electric mixer. You can mix by hand like we talked about the potato masher, whatever gets the job done. Some people had some people reach out and say I used to mix with a baseball bat, hockey stick, sanding pole, a branch from a tree, whatever gets it done, man. I'm to the point now I don't want to kill myself, so I'm going to use the power tool to help me. I got a little bit of water in there. You saw what I did? Very little bit of water. Let's give it a mix. Remember, feet on the sides of the bucket. Every bucket that you buy, or box, sorry, that you buy, my recommendation is to mix it. Do you have to? No. Take it right out of the bucket if you want. I'm telling you what works for me, what has worked for me, and continues to work for me. And it's ease of operation. Again, like the first video, I'm going to want you to... Oh, we almost lost it there. You see that when you don't pay attention? Holy shit, man. That would have made this place ugly. I should say uglier. They're already ugly. That's not true. But I'm going to want you to go up and down a couple of times. Okay, I like that. Remember now, compound has glue in it. That's the adhesive. It's water-based, water, glue, a couple other components. If you guys are really curious, it has the ingredients right on the side of the bucket. For anybody who's really curious, you top your mixer off. You can take your bucket. Again, for the beginners out there who are curious, it'll tell you what's in here. The directions, the storage, preparation, application, and then it gives you the ingredients, okay? It's asbestos-free. For anybody who's interested, it's on the side of the bucket, all right? I'm explaining it to you. And I should mention that, you see that picture right there? I've been doing this so long, that's my baby picture. They just took my face off of it. But it's kind of funny. This particular compound that I use has a little bit more plaster of Paris in it than the other compounds. But it's a preference. For me, I like the way it sets up. I can use it. It's a little bit more forgiving. That's the word I was looking for, forgiving. Let's throw the bucket up here so we don't have to bend down, right? Although I could use a little bit of up and down. So here's the process. Eventually, hopefully, as we move forward with all of these videos, we're going to come back and start doing some advanced techniques, some things that I do a little bit differently on the job site that I may not be showing you here. But that's for another video. So for this particular video series, we're going to go in sequence as to how I would recommend you taping your first job, your home, etc. You got your seams with the recess in here. You have your cross butts. You have your inside corners. You have your cap, ceiling seams, cross butts, corner bead, and lastly, your fasteners or your screws, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to second coat the seams first, or some of the seams. And I may jump around and do partial pieces just to show you how to do it, right? And it'll all make sense when it's tied together after Anthony gets done doing his magic. So for me right now, I'm just going to continue and go through the process. So we're going to be doing some of the seams first, a little bit of the corner. We're going to jump around a little bit, and he's going to put it into sequence. Again, the tools that I recommend that work for me, I use a 6-inch knife always. I use a 10-inch knife. Always, okay, for my second coat. I did use it to wipe out the tape on the first coat. You could also use an 8-inch knife if you prefer. It's a little easier on the hand, but for the second coat on the seams, I recommend a 10-inch knife. Now, if you remember from the first video, the reason why I showed you to fill your recess was for ease of operations moving into the second coat. Do you have to fill the entire recess on the first coat? No, don't do it. You don't want to do it, don't do it. You want to loosen the compound up where it barely fits in there? Don't do it. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to hide this seam with a traditional 3-coat process. If you want to mix up some quick setting compound, that's your preference too. That you're going to develop over the course of time. This is a traditional 3-coat process that I am showing you that works, okay? You can see the recess that was filled completely, okay? You can see where the screws had sunk in a little bit. That's the shrink. That's the shrink. You can look closely at these lines and see where the tape shrunk in to the seam. That's what you want, okay? Same thing on the ceiling. You could see where the tape shrunk into the screws and into the seam. That's what you want, okay? It's very important. What you want to create now is you have a little void in there that's going to get filled with second coat compound, okay? You don't want to put too much compound on here because then you create a hump. You don't want to put too little amount of compound on here because then you create a valley. Each one of those you will see after your paint job. What did we say in the beginning? Smooth and flat. That's our goal. That's what we want to achieve. So let's. The consistency is good here. I like that. Again, one of the reasons why I use this Hawk, it's easier for me to carry. I hold it this way. I don't hold it this way, right? I hold it this way. The other ones you hold this way. It's a preference, and that's how I learned. It also allows me to really get that compound spread out, right? We want that spread out. We want the full 10-inch knife to carry the majority of that compound, okay? So the Hawk enables me to do that. It's hard for me in the other vessel to achieve that. So I find that this is a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more easier. That's just what works for me. I want you to get a good amount of compound on your 10-inch knife. I want you to the full 10 inches here. I want you to get into that inside corner. I want you to start with your knife open. Remember, if you go back to the beginning, I showed you knife angles, finger positioning is really, really important. And this is all going to start tying together when you start seeing these different coats go on. Where your fingers are, why it matters. People use 2 fingers. That's okay too, you know. I'm not saying that that's not okay. You can do it. If it's comfortable for you, good for you. What works for me is 1 finger because I'm able to move that finger left, right, up, down, on the blade, on the knife, on the handle, and that's what works for me. So I'm going to want you to get into that corner. I'm going to want you to drop down on your knife a little bit. Look at my hands. Your finger's going to drop down to the top, and I want you to flatten and press, okay? And you're going to glide that compound along, right? And you're going to keep going. Open, hand low, finger low, start open, gradually dissipate, and press. That may happen. That may happen. Fine. I'm fine with that, okay? Again, keep that compound across your 10-inch knife full. You're going to want to keep it open. And as that compound dissipates, you're going to want to flatten and press. Now, look at where my hand is and my finger is. My hand's down on the bottom and my finger is here. That's how I put the compound on. It's very difficult to put compound on with your knife open. Halfway, I push it here. And again, in real time, you can see where my fingers are on the bottom of the knife, and my index finger is literally, I've been doing it for a long time, it literally create some wear and tear here. That's where I want you to be. Maybe you got it on a little uneven here and there or whatnot. That's okay. I'm fine with that. I'm going to ask you to take a little bit more compound on your knife and start from the beginning again. Open your knife slightly and press and push. And this time, all we're looking to do is just even everything out. Okay? You can do it multiple times if you like. Get back in there and just in real time, just push, right? If you notice with my hawk, it's just habitual, right? When I go back after I put the compound on, I typically wipe my knife like this all the time. One time, and then the back. Boom, boom. It's just habitual. It keeps the wall cleaner. That's all it does. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. I'm just showing you why you may see me do it like that. It's just habitual. I don't even think about it. Now your next step on the seam is you're going to want to cut these edges into the recess, right? And the way you do that is you position your fingers. Left, right, left, right, left, right. You're going to start here again. I'm going to want you to keep your index finger on the left side of the knife. I'm going to want you to push just the top corner of the knife, and I'm going to want you to direct it down, okay? Into the seam, not out, in. And you'll see what I mean. I'm going to see if I can do it slow. And we're cutting that corner. Sorry, that edge, okay? It started to dry a little bit, but that's okay. This is what I want you to see. I want you to see that recess, okay? I want you to see it. I'm okay with that. Same thing with the bottom. Look at where my knife is. My hand is, I'm sorry. My hand is on the bottom of the knife. My finger is on the right-hand side. And what we're going to do now is we're going to cut the bottom edge and we're going to push the compound into the seam. Same way as the top, just opposite. You see that recess? That's what I want you to see, okay? It's very important. That's why on the first coat, I wanted you to fill the recess. That's our job, to fill the recess. If you don't see that recess and you got to glob a little bit heavy mud here, a little bit heavy mud here, say, oh, you mud lovers, right? I said mud, there it is, right? Make you happy now. You got too much mud, you're creating a hump. We don't want a hump. We want flat and smooth. Remember? Come on. Again, repetition. Gets back in the corner again. Let's pull it out a little, right? Let's pull it, get it going. Watch where my hand is. I'm low on the knife, my finger is low. I get that knife as flat as I possibly can and I apply pressure, okay? You see the recess. You see the recess. That's what I want, okay? There's going to be some questions that come up. They call them fish eyes. They call them pock marks. There's different names for it. Call it whatever you want. But different materials leave different finishes on a wallboard. if you're struggling and you're leaving a lot of pock marks or fish eyes, the way you address that is that you need to get your knife as flat, and I'll show you on the next seam what I mean by pock marks. You're going to want to get your seam your knife as flat as you possibly can, almost touching, with zero pressure. And you're literally just gliding your knife across. That's going to remove any of your pock marks and your fish eyes, okay? That creates a problem. Look at that. We got a little blister. I think that's from moving the set around. But that's what a blister looks like. Going back to the beginning, right? You can see that right there. There's no compound behind that. We moved the set, it pulled away, but that's a blister right there. So that's a good example of what a blister is. The issue with the pock marks is that if you do leave them in there, they have to be sanded out before the third coat. I don't like to sand. I don't think anybody likes to sand. So if I set myself up for success on the second coat for the third coat, I'm not sanding as much. We don't want to have to sand those pock marks out. What happens with those pock marks is you sand them. If you don't sand them all the way out, they fill with dust. Then when you apply your third coat, the compound doesn't grab the actual second coat. It grabs the dust that's in the holes. And then the compound pulls out. So now you have to apply another coat. So, you know, I know it might be too much information, but these are all things that you need to tie together. We don't want pock marks. We don't want fish eyes. Whatever you call that, that you leave in your compound, we don't want that. Give ourselves a better chance of being successful for the third coat, okay? I'm going to jump to the ceiling, okay? Typically, when I go on a job site, I would do the ceilings first. Again, going back. Anything that falls, we can scrape as we work our way from top to bottom. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. That's the way I do it, and that's what works for me. Again, a 10-inch knife. We're going to get that mud spread out. We're going to start on the ceiling. Again, look where my hand is. My hand is low on the knife. My finger is low on the handle. I should say my hand was low on the handle. We're just dropping down. I'm never up here. I'm always down here, here, so I can control the knife better. Into the corner, the cap. You see that flex in that knife? That's what I'm gonna want you to do. I don't want you to keep it open. I want you to keep it flat. I want you to push and create a little bit of a bend in the knife. That's gonna help you from dropping the compound on your head, okay? And go. Okay. Now, I'm applying a lot of pressure. You obviously can't see, but I am applying the pressure. Referring to the fish eyes or the pock marks. I don't know if you could pick this up, Anthony, but this is what I was referring to. Fish eyes and pock marks in here. You see these little holes? Okay. Different materials leave different finishes. Some of the materials will leave more pock marks than others. Do you have to identify which material? No, you could use them all. They're all going to give you the same result, hopefully in the end, if you do the process correctly. But my job is to show you how to not have these pock marks, how to get those out, right? So I'm going to show you, again, how we get those out. But first, we need to finish getting the compound on the seam, okay? Let's keep going. Let's keep going, right? I reversed my hand to go this way. I'm programmed to do it, right? Same as the wall. Compound on the knife, get into your corner, and now we're just flattening out what we put up there, making it nice and easy. Nice disbursement, full 10 inches. You can do it a couple of times. I don't mind that. You got nothing but time. It's your house. You're doing it for pride. You're doing it to learn. We're not piece working. We're not working by the square foot. We're not just throwing compound up there. Again, what I showed you on the seam on the wall, same idea. Look where my finger is. I'm low on the knife, and my fingers are gonna move. My finger is gonna move from the left to the right, to the right to the left, okay? Always when cutting the edge, you point your knife into the seam. You don't spread it out on the second coat. The third coat is a different story. Remember again, the process here is to go wider, to go wider, to go wider. Feather it out. That's how you blend that seam into the wall and make it smooth and flat. So watch me turn my knife, okay? Cut that corner, cut that edge, my bad. It's starting to dry a little bit, which is okay. I don't mind that. Typically, I would run right through this, but we're taking the time to explain. Same thing on this side, right? Finger, this side, left side. Cut in. Okay? Repetition, right? Repetition. Same as the wall seam. We're gonna clean this up in here. We're gonna get our knife in there. We don't wanna leave any compound in there. If we do, when it dries, we'll just scrape it out. It's just more work, but be aware. And now again, we're gonna keep that knife slightly flat. And let me just emphasize this. If I keep my knife like that and I push here and my hand is low on the handle, right? I'm creating a bend in the knife. This knife is gonna bend. That's what we want. We want that flex in the knife. Applying pressure, hand low, finger low is going to do that, okay? See where my hand is? Low, and we continue applying pressure, and we go. There's no pock marks in here, and I will say, again, some materials leave pock marks, some don't. Some leave more, some leave less. I don't know why they're there. Maybe it's a chemical thing, maybe it's an engineer thing, who knows? All I know is that what we need to do is when we do see them, we gotta know how to get them out, right? And why do we get them out? And I explained that earlier. We wanna get them out because when you sand, they're filled with dust, and then the third coat is not gonna adhere to the second coat. It's gonna grab the dust that are in the pock marks. The best method that I have found to get the pock marks out, no matter what material you're using, is on your last wipe, you're gonna wanna get really low on your handle, get your finger just to the base of the blade. You're gonna flatten your knife out as much as you possibly can and literally just drag your knife over that seam, and that's gonna eliminate your pock marks. No pressure. The more pressure you put, the pock marks are gonna reappear. Maybe we're going into too much detail on the pock marks, I'm not sure, but I know it was something that came up constantly. What do you do about the pock marks? What do you do about the pock marks? So we're trying to address that as best as we can. So here we're gonna address the opposite wall seam, right? Here you're in a dilemma. It's very hard to pull through this way, right? If you're a righty, if you're a lefty, there's no hope for you. I got a couple of my good friends that are lefty tapers, and we always used to bust their chops on the job. And we used to say, I never met a good lefty taper. But in this situation, a lefty taper, it would really help because you could pull the compound this way. So again, going back to angles, right? Positioning on your tools, it's important. So now we're gonna have to figure out, we gotta come this way now to some point until we can come this way. Or you may be more comfortable going the whole way with the backhand. Now I'm a tennis player. Let's give the seam a little bit of a scrape beforehand, right? Any debris that was there from the first coat drying. Again, you're gonna see repetition, repetition, repetition. It's the same over and over and over again. Compound on the full 10-inch knife. We're gonna get into that corner. We're gonna position our hands low, low, and we're gonna press. We're gonna feel the compound dissipate, and we're gonna press, okay? I'm applying a considerable amount of pressure on this. I know it doesn't look like I am, but I am. So that's why using your tools correctly, using the right tools that work for you, that fit your hand. If you're gonna do this all the time, you're gonna feel it in your wrists, your arms. It's muscles that you never used before. So you will be applying a considerable amount of pressure on here, and just realize that. Like at the end of the day, if you never did this before and at night, your wrist is hurting, your arm is hurting, your forearm is hurting, you know why, right? Let's get back in there. Let's push the compound. I'm gonna continue this way, backhand, right? If you have your compound wide enough on your hawk, you could just grab it like that then, and it's gonna fill your 10-inch knife right up, and then go. Okay, pull right through that corner bead, pull right through the cross butt. Again, repetition, go back, get in your corner, and now you're just making the compound even, more uniform, flat. You don't have high amount here, low amount here, high amount here. You're consistent across the whole seam. That's what you want. I'll continue with the backhand. I could pull this way as well, whatever makes you comfortable. Actually, that's what I'll do. I'm gonna come a little bit this way and this way so you could see both methods, right, real quick. If I did it in real time, I wouldn't look so slow, right? But we're teaching. These videos are for beginners. We need to explain everything, okay? Once you get the method down, you won't move this slow. If I did this in real speed, would be done very quickly. So again, positioning the finger, right? Repetition, here we go. Point down, let's go to the cross butt. Same thing here, point up. I'm gonna come this way now just to show everybody the difference. Let me do a little real time, right? This is how real time looks. See that knife pointed up, pointed up, pointed up, pushing the compound into the seam. I'm gonna do the same thing, right? If you find yourself with a corner here and a corner here, where do I stop, right? How do I do that without leaving a ton of, sorry, I cursed, a lot of compound in one area? Well, one way that we tackle that is if there's another seam that's around, we would leave what's called a horseshoe, okay? And this is what a horseshoe looks like. Again, get your knife really flat, pull to your cross butt. You can see the recess, that's what I want. I don't want compound here or here, I want it in there. You put compound here and here, you're creating a hump. Now you gotta either on the third coat, sand the crap out of it to get it flat, or you gotta float this out 20 inches to bury that hump. Why would you do that if you can get it correctly from the beginning? You're giving yourself more work, okay? There's that horseshoe, right? If I came back this way and I flatten my knife and I pull, I leave that horseshoe there, right? Not the end of the world. If you find yourself in a position where you need to end off and you have to leave a horseshoe and you don't have any cross butts, just leave the horseshoe wherever. On the third coat, when it's dry, you're gonna go back, you're gonna scrape it, and you're gonna give it a quick sand. And then you're gonna continue with your polish coat. We're gonna jump a little bit. Our wall seams, our ceiling seams are second coated. We're gonna let them set up a little bit. I'm gonna jump to the screws, and then we'll dive into the corners, and then the cross butts, and then lastly, the corner bead. So with the screws, I had some people just reach out to me and say, hey, Ken, you know, I did the screws the way you said. As you could see here, we strung these. We started showing the first timers how to just spot them, and it kind of just morphs into the slide method, right? Spot, morph into the slide. That's what you see here. This is the slide method. But I had some people who reached out to me and said, hey, Ken, the compound wants to push out on the screws, right? And it's creating a little bit of a dimple. That's common. That happens. Compound has water in it. It's a water base. When the moisture dissipates, it has to dissipate somewhere. It dissipates outwards. The moisture carries the compound outward, and that's why you get these little dimples. It's common. It happens a lot. On a day like today, it's moist out. It's a little humid out. It's going to happen more. If it's more drier, it's not going to happen. What you'll see then is you're going to see that screw head actually sink in. And you could see that in some areas here where this one actually sunk in, and this one actually pushed out, right? I mean, it's environment, it reacts. That's why I said drying times, weather, all of those things matter. To a degree where it's going to be, difficult to manage? No. I just bring it up to you so you understand the why. Why is it doing that? Simply, if you find that they're pushing out a little bit, all I want you to do is before you second coat it, just scrape it. Give it a scrape. Give it a scrape. Give it a scrape. Don't scrape into your wet seam like I just did. Scrape. Scrape. Another thing too is while you're going along, if you see anything on the wall that you may have dropped and you want to scrape it, you scrape it off. You just, you're scraping stuff. A lot of times too is it's sheetrock. It gets damaged, it gets dinged, it gets hit along the way. Maybe we didn't see it on the first coat. But again, our job is to make it smooth and flat, right? We want everything to cover. When the paint goes on, we want to help the painter. So what I would say is like, for instance, here, I didn't see this in the beginning. There's a little tear in the sheetrock, okay? Now's the time, as you're moving through the process, if you see a little area like that, simply take a little compound and fill it, okay? Recognize it and see it. If you don't recognize it and the painter comes to paint, you're probably the painter. That's going to show through. I wanted to address this too before I got into these screws. Again, the sheetrock is not perfect. There's always imperfections, okay? There's a little indentation here. Maybe when it was rolled out, maybe when it was baked, it didn't adhere correctly, so there's a little indentation. Similar to what we hit over here, okay? We identified these on the first coat. If we don't identify these, when you paint, you will see those. So I identified this as I'm moving through. Again, take compound, whatever knife you're using. I don't care if you use a spoon. You want to use a spoon? Use a spoon. And then you could clean it, and then you could eat your lunch afterwards with the spoon, right? Use a 1 inch, a 2 inch, a 3 inch. How come you don't use a 4 inch? I use a 6 inch. That's what I use. You want to use a spoon? You want to use a stick? Go get it, put the compound on. Good luck getting it smooth. Here's a little indentation. And you fill it. You see that? It's filled. You recognize that for your second coat, third coat, put another coat on it. Make sure it's nice and flat and smooth. Anyway, keep your walls and ceilings clean. It's key. Always keep it clean. If you have a big glob on the wall and that dries up, you can't paint that, okay? You have to keep your tools, your walls, the floor, everything clean. Let's get into some quick screws, right? We showed you how to spot. It morphed into the sliding, and here we're going to go. We want to try and do our best to keep our slide method no bigger than this width that we created on the first coat, okay? If you even go smaller, that's even better. Again, look where my fingers are for this 6 inch knife when I'm sliding. I use my thumb this time because it gives me control this way. And what I'm trying to do is start here, and as the compound dissipates, I pivot to put pressure on the top. In real time, you can't see it. If I slow it down, you can see it. Okay? Here we go. I'm going to start from the bottom and go to the top. And swipe. I want you to give it a swipe. If you don't give it a swipe, you're going to have compound I showed you this in the beginning. You're gonna have compound on your knife, and then when you go to wipe it, you're gonna leave what they call clinkers, or back in the day, snots, like that. We don't want that. We want clean. So give yourself a better opportunity to be successful for the next coat. Clean your knife. Make sure it's clean, okay? Here we go, real time. All right? Maybe you left a little bit of an edge on there. You didn't like it. You can go over it. You can take that edge off. Remember, it's getting another coat. Moving through, it's repetition. It's very boring. Put your headphones on. Get into it. Start from the bottom. Go up. Swipe. Now, if you don't feel comfortable wiping that right away, take your knife and clean it. Get it clean. So there's nothing on there, right? And then wipe it. Right? Again, compound, my fingers, pivot, slide, start at the bottom, go to the top, clean. If you can get your blade, eventually, the less moves that you make on the wall makes you more efficient and speeds up your time. But speed comes with repetition. The more you do it, the faster you get, right? You're not going to be able to do it that fast in the beginning, but eventually you will. Okay? That's simple. Hey, I'm getting ready to do the bottom screws, right? Look at this little imperfection in this wall. Take a little compound. I want you to just go on there and fill it. Don't bypass that. That will show on the painting process, all right? Let's help the painter out now. The painter is our friend. We want to be good friends with the painter. I got a lot of good friends around here that are painters. I like to keep them happy. Let's move over here and we're going to do the bottoms, okay? Same idea. We're going to start from the top and go to the bottom. I use my thumb and forefinger to pivot my knife. It works for me. It's easier on my wrist. That's why I do it. You have another method, go for it. You want to go in and get your pancake spatula and use that. If that's comfortable for you, do it. Just make sure it's smooth and flat. That's all, okay? Start from the top, go to the bottom. Same thing, just in an opposite direction. If you can get your knife clean, look, I already stepped in some. It's all over the place. Oh my God. If you can get your knife clean, go for it. My blade is clean. You can come right up. I don't mind that. But you see how I'm keeping the width the same? I'm not going full 6. You want to use your 4, your 3. I'm not going to keep emphasizing that. Whatever knife you want to use. The goal is each coat we go a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't have designed them in 2, except for the 1 inch, right? Well, I guess that's not true. 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch. There are increments, but there's not a 9 inch that I know of, and there's not an 11 inch that I know of. Maybe there are out there. That's why the seams, when you wipe with an 8, you coat with a 10, you polish with a 12, all right? That's kind of the mentality. So we're gradually spreading that compound out, more coverage, better chance to be successful when the paint goes on, right? We're flaring it out. That's the goal. So, again, screws, fingers, start at the top. I identified the fact that it doesn't need to be scraped. You can always go through and scrape everything in the beginning. That's perfectly fine too. Start from the top, go to the bottom, and wipe up, okay? Start from the top, go to the bottom, wipe up. You feel a little bump, maybe the hair of the sheetrock, flat and smooth. Take the butt of your knife, give it a little tap, okay? Swat it and wipe it. A little debris in there, nice and smooth. And this is why I use a 6-inch knife, okay? I can keep I can keep my compound within the 6 inches. My final coat, which is my third coat, I'm gonna wanna be 6 inches because I'm gonna wanna cover this completely. The compound's gonna be looser. I'm gonna go the same method, but however, I'm gonna be spreading the compound out over these 2 coats to bury these edges, right? And we're gonna create a nice polish coat on there with no edges. Right now it's heavy compound. Remember, the heavier the compound, the more of an edge it's gonna leave. The looser the compound, the less of an edge. That's why on the third and final coat, you'll see that we're gonna add even more water in there, dilute the compound a little bit more to create no edge. Sometimes it's hard to not create an edge. That's why guys, a lot of people go back and they sand, or they'll brush it down. We call it brush down. You take a, very fine sanding block, piece of sandpaper, and I'll show you that on the third coat. I got a piece of sandpaper that's been on my sanding pole literally 2 years, and that's what I use because I don't like to sand, and I leave it the best that I can on the second coat so I don't have to sand. Do you have to sand a little bit on big jobs? Yeah, of course you do. On little jobs, little patches, I don't sand at all. I would rather put another coat, put it on, take it off, than actually sand the out of it in someone's home. So the idea is thin, bigger, biggest, and flare it out, right? Like if we use that technique here, fill in the recess, that's all we filled in on the first coat. Now we go 10 inches. We're a little bit bigger. The last coat will be 12 inches. We'll bring it out here. We'll loosen the compound up, less of an edge, and now that's our finished coat, okay? It's really hard to get away on big projects without a little bit of sanding. And the reason being is because there's perlite, there's stuff in the material that how it's made is gritty. It's kind of like the grit of a sandpaper. It's in there. We can't get rid of it. That's how the material's made. We can get it as smooth as we possibly can, but you still may have to go back and sand, just understand that. But we don't want to create a snowstorm. There's no reason to. If you follow the process and do it correctly in a little room in your home, there's very little sanding, which I will show you how little I'm going to sand this on the third coat before we start the third coat. So let's go back to the screws, and I kind of want to show a little bit of real time, like how it goes. If you're in the room and you're in the groove and you kind of got the music going and you want to make up some time, it's the same process over and over and over and over again. Here you go. Bottom to the top. Bottom to the top. You see how fast you could get at doing this? I mean, doing whole houses, it's a lot of work, but you can get very, very efficient at doing it if you do it correctly. I'm already identifying a little dimple here. Look, see where I'm scraping from the first coat? It's not the end of the world. I want you to tap it a little bit. Get it below the surface of the sheetrock, and now that's ready for the second coat. Again, top to bottom. Keep it nice and thin. The third coat is going to bury those edges, okay? Same thing here. Keep it nice and thin. And some people would prefer to use a 4-inch on the first and second coat and then polish with a 6-inch. Whatever works for you. If that works, beautiful. Use the 4-inch. Use the 3-inch. Like I said, use a spoon. Doesn't matter. Whatever gets the job done and makes you're comfortable with. This is what I use. I prefer not to go back and forth to my tools. Be consistent. Use one size knife. Just keep it smaller and build it out, build it out, build it out. That's what works for me. We want to identify these little indentations that are in here too. We want to make sure that they're addressed. You're going to see them. It's inevitable. You're going to see dings, scratches, tears, rips, whatever you have, whatever there might be. You need to identify and get it ready for paint. Okay? Very simple. I'm seeing some dimples down here too. You see that? That's all in the skin of the sheetrock. I couldn't see it for whatever reason on the first coat. I'm seeing it now. Take the time to fill, okay? If you don't, is it the end of the world? Of course it's not. But you will see that when you paint. Is even that the end of the world? No. If you want to look at that after it's painted, good for you. It's your house. You could do whatever you want. Okay? Lastly, we're going to do the ceilings. Again, this is for teaching purposes. Did the walls first. Typically, I would do the ceilings first. Okay? We switched it up a little. Don't get crazy. All right? Slide method, same thing. My fingers, I want to keep showing that. It enables me to move my knife this way, okay? It's the only reason. If you want to do it like this, go ahead. If you want to do it like this, go ahead. If you want to do it like this, go ahead. Do it however you want. Showing you what works for me and what has worked for me and continues to work for me. Okay? Here we go. Start at one side, slide. Done. Same idea as the longer screws, except it's only 2 screws. Continue. Going through. Continue. Real time, right? Excuse me. Over here. Same thing. We got a little dimple there. Identify that. Scrape. This one I'm swatting. It's a little smaller. No need. I left a little bit of a clinker or a snot right there. Clean that up. It happens. Nobody's perfect. Okay? This one I need to address. We've got to scrape it a little bit. Smooth and flat. Right? Same thing here. Smooth and flat. Okay? Make sure we're covered. And we're good to go. Screws and seams complete. Next, we're going to move into the most controversial part of the drywall finishing process, which is the inside corners and the caps. Some of you call them angles. Good for you. Nobody ever put baby in an angle. Everyone puts baby in the corner. I call them corners. Call it whatever you want. It's this. Okay? We're gonna second coat the cap right now. Again, everybody has their methods. Everybody has their procedures. What I'm gonna show you here works for me, okay? I was taught to do both sides of the corner at the same time. I understand that a lot of people out there, probably the majority of the people, do it differently. They do one side at a time. They let the one side dry. They come back the next day. They put the next coat on, okay? They do the other side. Sorry, not the next coat. They do the other side. I do 2 sides at the same time. That's how I was taught. That's what works for me. And when I get into it, I'm going to show you the why. And the why makes sense to me. And that's why I do it the way I do it, okay? I also referenced in the beginning of the videos, I put 3 coats on everything, all right? Cross butts, sometimes 4. They can be difficult. Flat and smooth, that's what we're looking to achieve here, right? If it takes 4 coats, it takes 4 coats. Guys, if you could get away with 2 coats, good for you, man. If you can do it in 1 coat, if you could just put caulk in the corner and get whatever you can get away with, showing you what works for me, showing you the process that works for me, and what's going to give you a good chance of being successful and making your room, your house, your home flat and smooth, and being aware that the painter is following you up, right? So we want to make it correct for the painter. So with that being said, 2 sides at the same time, okay? We're gonna start with the cap. Same process as putting the compound on your knife as when we were roughing or doing the first coat. I want you to get half the knife filled. You wanna use a 4, use a 4. 3, I'm gonna keep reiterating this, I don't care what you use. This is what I use. And I'm gonna keep it thinner than 6 inches, because this is my 6-inch knife. And my last coat is going to be 6 inches. So anything inside of 6 inches, and that goes for the screws and the caps, anything inside the 6 inches is acceptable to me, okay? The ceilings go up first. I want you to identify this. The ceilings go up first, walls go up second, okay? This is how I do it. Compound, get right in that corner where all 3 corners meet and spread it on. You're gonna feel the dissipation of the material on your knife. It's the same as it was here, same as it was here. As you feel it dissipate, you're gonna flatten your knife out. Okay, you're gonna wanna keep it as flat as you can moving down, all right? Same idea as with your seams. Don't have globs of compound. Make it even, uniform. Go back in there and flatten your knife and get it a nice little even spread of compound, okay? I was taught bottom, top, bottom. That's how I was taught. We're gonna do the same thing to the top. Half the knife, right? I'm gonna get the compound on half the knife. And we're gonna spread it. Again, it's the same technique, the same idea. Let's get that compound nice and uniform, right? Let's get it the same thickness across the wall. Same thickness, not a glob here, not a glob there. Get your initial spread on your cap, go back, get in there, and no pressure, just glide that compound along. We're evening it out, that's all we're doing, okay? We have to cut the edges. I showed you how to cut the edges on the 10-inch knife on the seams. Same thing with the caps and corners. We're gonna cut the edge. I use my fingers the same way as I put it on the screws, okay? 4-finger thumb, it controls it this way. I'm gonna cut the edge. I'm putting more pressure on my thumb to cut the edge up into the corner, okay? If you hit, if you grab, if you pull anything off of the other side, it's okay, it's not the end of the world. Same thing on the top. I'm gonna want you to use your finger and position it and cut in, okay? Now here's where the technique comes in. And this is going to be repetition, repetition, repetition. You're not gonna get this on the first try. I'm gonna show you why I do it this way. I was taught bottom, top, bottom. That's how it works. We wanna even out this compound on the bottom. We basically, you see the angle of my knife? We're pressing it against the ceiling and we are pulling it through, okay? My angle is this way, all right? Can you go this way? Sure you can. Can you go this way? Sure you can. What works for me is angling it this way. And the reason being, it's easier for me to turn my knife this way and get my knife flat than it is to turn it this way and get my knife flat. When you turn it this way, you have more of a tendency to drag compound out of the other side, okay? So if I turn my knife, you got this close, a little bit, and I flatten it out, you see how tight that is to creating that corner? We're not gonna pull any compound out of the opposite side. Once I turn my knife this way and I open it and I push, This is what happens, okay? You see that? We don't want that. We want to leave the compound on the opposite side, okay? That's why I do it that way. So we're gonna put the compound back in just to get where we were starting again. And I'm not saying this, I'm saying slightly. And look where my fingers are, and I'm trying to get that knife nice and flat, okay? Here we go. Now we're gonna wipe the ceiling. It's the same thing. Keep your knife flat. We're not trying to create a big open gap there, okay? Look where my fingers are. I'm gonna drop really low on my knife because I'm gonna wanna keep it as flat as I possibly can. And we're gonna get in there and we're gonna angle it the same way as I did the wall. Slightly angle, okay? Slight angle. Let's keep it flat, all right? The compound is starting to dry up a little bit, so we're leaving a little bit of an edge. Bottom, top, bottom. This is the final wipe for your cap, okay? I want you to go low on your knife, finger low. I want you to angle your knife, slightly downward, flat. Get your corner in there and turn and go. Okay. Now, here's the why, all right? And how I understood it when I worked in the union back in the day. My uncle taught me. We worked with a lot of painters on the job. I listened to what the painters were telling me, and this is why we did it the way we did it. I need you to come in close up here. Do you see the little groove that we created in there? Okay. When a painter comes in and he paints the house, the home, the room, 99% of the time, the colors are different, okay? What this groove does is it creates a track for the painter to put his brush in and break up and cut in, okay? All my painters that I work with, they love it. It makes it easier for them. They don't have to freehand it. And we just continue doing it this way. And that's why I do it this way, to actually make it easier for the painter. A painter gets his brush right in that groove and he goes right down, okay? And that's really the reason. I mentioned in the beginning series, think of the next guy. Think of who's after you. Be conscientious that there are people following you. You're not the end of the line. Like when you walk away, you want to make sure that that job is done professional enough for the next guy to come in and do his job. And if it's you and you're doing all of it, you're going to really be happy that you have that little line in there, that you can get your nice clean paintbrush in that groove and create a crisp, clean line to separate your ceiling color from your wall color. If there's no color differential, then just slap it in there. You're still going to get a nice, crisp, clean line that's going to identify it, the walls from the ceiling. That's why I do it that way. If you want to do it one side at a time, come back the next day after it's dry, do the other side. If that works for you, good. Do it that way. The ultimate goal is flat and smooth, right? This is what works for me. This is how I was taught. And it's going to be the same idea on this cap, and it's going to be the same on this corner, all right? That's next. All right, so welcome back, Drywall with Kenny. We took a little bit of a break, and in between, segments and coats. And the reason being is because I wanted to give the seams that I did first in the cap a little opportunity to set up, okay, and dry up. We're lucky enough that it was, we got drying conditions that were advantageous for us to continue. Typically, my recommendation would be is as a beginner and you know, doing it for your first time, and you have the time, go through and do all your seams, walls and ceilings, and your screws, okay? And let them sit. Let it dry for 24 hours if you have the time. That's ideal, right? A lot of times we don't have the time. We need to get the coats on really quick. We need to get the second coat on in one day, okay? And that would require another technique, right? We call that wet on wet. It's a little bit more finesse. You could get there. It's just repetition. You have to understand, you know, how to pull everything together when it's all wet at one time. It's not like paint. You're pulling through things. You're pulling through the seams. You're pulling through the cross butts. So until you develop the finesse and the technique to do that, my recommendation is to let each of the components dry thoroughly, or at least to the touch. Like here, it's still a little damp. You can still see it a little damp, but it's dry to the touch. And you can continue with your the next sequence in the process, right? And I can also tell at this point in time that this seam is nice and flat. It's not humped. It's not concaved. So what that's telling me is as this still continues to dry, is we have a very good opportunity for our third coat to be extremely successful because we did the right job on the first and the second coat, okay? That's very important. So I can feel that right now. I mean, I could tell you, like if we're gonna have a hump there or not. And this is feeling pretty good. It's still damp, dry to the touch. Still damp, dry to the touch, but we can now pull our next succession or our next sequence, which is gonna be the cross butts and the inside corner right through the seams, okay? So if that makes sense, we can continue to move forward. So yeah, now that we're all dried up somewhat to the touch, we can continue moving forward with the rest of the second coat, right? Again, we're always looking, we're always scanning, we're always just seeing what's on the walls and the ceilings itself. Anything needs to be scraped off, anything needs to be addressed, now's the time to do it. But it's always constant. It becomes part of second, you know, habitual. It's second nature to do it. Anthony's got me wearing his GoPro now. He likes it. He's smiling over there. All right. I don't even know what a GoPro is. All right. Going back to the bucket again. We're going to get some compound on the holding vessel. I think we're going to do this cap here. We're going to follow up with this cap. Now, we did this cap earlier. This is somewhat set up. We're going to have a little finesse over here when we pull this corner down, but that's okay. I think we can manage that, and I could give you a good idea. So here, I'm going to do a little bit more real time, right, to replicate this cap, all right? I explained to you earlier, we do two sides at the same time. And that works for me. I understand going back. If you do one side at a time, you wait for that to dry, you come back, you do the other side, whatever works for you. This works for me. This is how I was taught. And my painters love me for it. They tell me this works for us. That's why we continue to do it, okay? So again, half the knife. So it's about 3 inches. You want to use a 3-inch knife? Go ahead, man. 4-inch knife, go ahead. We're going to start and we're going to put it on. A little bit more real time here, right? Because I want to show you that's not all slow motion. I don't know if you can pick up that little bit of debris in there. Maybe that's the Go Cam that'll pick that up, right? You can see that. All that is just some dried up compound. Some compound that is not quite dry yet. We picked up from pulling it. That's okay. Don't get scared. Come back, get that knife right in there. Flat, right? Flatten that knife, okay? Get that hand down low. Get that finger down low. Keep it flat, right? Put a little bit more on and go over it again. We want nice, uniform compound, right? You can do the same thing on the bottom again. Uniform compound. See how I always have a tendency to keep my knife on a slight angle, right? It's important. I want you to get in. Remember, bottom, top, bottom. We're going to cut the edge. See that little drag I had there? That's the culprit. That little piece of compound, debris, whatever, created that entire line. We want to always avoid that. We want to make sure that we have clean compound all the time. Same thing on the top. We're cutting the edge. We're cutting the edge. What I'm doing is I'm putting more pressure on the outside to cut the edge, okay? Some of the angles will be a little bit awkward depending on which way you're pulling it, and that's understandable. Again, it's going to take time. It's going to take repetition to get to where you need to be. Bottom, top, bottom on these caps, okay? Get your knife in there. Flatten your knife. Slight angle and pull. Now, if you need to take an extra swipe at it to get it to where you need it to be, that's okay too. I'm okay with that. The reason why I say bottom, top, bottom is because that's the sequence. I always want your last wipe to be on the bottom. So if you have to go bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, okay, so be it. But you'll get good enough where you won't have to do that. You'll be able to do bottom, top, bottom, all right? And here I'm gonna do it one more time just to give you another show you how it's done. I'm gonna keep that knife nice and flat. My knuckles are actually scraping the sheetrock, okay? That's your bottom wipe. You're gonna come back, you're gonna do your top wipe. Get in there nice, clean, pull, pressure, flat, angle. That's what that looks like, okay? That's what that looks like. Bottom, top, now your last wipe. Again, if you have to do this sequence again, that's fine. I want your last wipe to be the bottom, okay? To create that nice little groove that the painter can now put his brush in. That's gonna give us a nice crisp separation between the wall and the ceiling, right? That's the goal. Last wipe. Now, I'm doing it this way, and I'm gonna pull this way. I wanna show you what the horseshoe looks like again. Don't be alarmed. If you have to do that, that's okay. That can get scraped and sanded once it's dried. Okay, look how flat that knife is. Look where my fingers are. I'm literally holding it with just two fingers and my index finger is pointing. We want that groove nice and thin, okay? Now, we're gonna come back this way, flatten the knife, and we're gonna create a horseshoe. See that horseshoe? I'm fine with that. You can leave it like that. You're gonna be able to scrape that and give it a quick sand on the second coat, and then you're gonna be able to polish that out. But here's the thing. I think we got a little bit too much compound on here, to be quite honest with you. And will it work like this? Yeah, it will. But my point is I want to show you, don't be afraid that if you do have to go back and follow the sequence again and push and get some compound out of there, look, we got a little bit. That's fine. We go back, top again, flatten the knife, angle the knife, flatten, angle, pressure, and go, right? Last wipe, bottom, top, bottom, last wipe. Get your knife in there, flatten it out, and turn. Get it in there and turn. Okay? Not gonna leave a horseshoe this time. And now you created that nice little groove for your painter to get his brush in there. and create that separation between the wall and the ceiling. I got a little bit of compound that I pulled on that side. I'm okay with that. Just get that knife in there and go like that and pull it. You're fine. That's great. I don't mind that. Looks good to me. Any questions? Imagine one day we'll get to a live presentation where we could actually take live comments, live questions, and we can answer. It's coming soon. We're getting sophisticated now from the garage, right? The sun's finally out, right? It's good. It's nice out today. Remember earlier, we hit this little piece. Always be on the lookout. Let's get some more compound on there. Why not, right? Just swipe a couple times. That'll dry up nice. You won't see it when you paint, all right? I'm always scanning. I'm always looking. That will become habitual. You will also be doing that. You'll always be scraping, looking for anything on the wall that's going to stick out, okay, when you paint. Let me get a little more compound on here. We're going to do the up and down. Always like fresh compound. Another thing I should add, it's starting to get a little warmer out. Sun is out. Drying temperatures are going to vary. We went over this. It's not the worst idea to get into a habit of when you're not using your compound and it's sitting here idle, take your lid and just leave it on top. Let that lid sit there. The air, once it gets to it, it starts to dry. We don't want dry compound mixing in with the wet compound. That's all we got to do. Just lay it on there. You don't have to slam it on there. You just take it and lay it on there. It's very simple. It's kind of like soda, right? You leave the soda open, it's going to go flat. Same idea. Air hits it, it dries it up. All right. Inside corner or angle, whatever you want to call it, right? We already went through this. Call it whatever you want. I call it an inside corner. We want it nice and square, right? We created a nice square corner. Why? We need that nice square corner in there for when they come and put the trim on, right? When the base trim comes on, if you have too much mud globbed on the bottom, doing crown molding, too much mud globbed on the top, whatever the case may be, now your carpenter has to suffer for your negligence when you were creating a nice square corner. That's the goal, okay? This is all the same. You're going to see me do the same. Put the compound on half the knife. I'm going to actually go and grab a little bit more because we're going to need a little bit more for this corner. Another technical aspect of the drywall business, another controversial thing, inside corners, caps, however you get it done. If you feel more comfortable doing one side and letting that dry, coming back tomorrow and doing the other side and letting that dry, good for you. The results ultimately are all going to be the same. Flat and smooth, so it's ready for paint. That's our goal. So let's get into this corner. Same technique as we were putting it on the cap, bottom, top, right? We're gonna do side, side. 1, 2, 3. It's gonna be this side, this side. It's always 3. Our last wipe is a little, did you catch that? Another blob. We're getting sloppy. But you leave that on there, now you track it all over the goddamn house. We don't want that. We don't want that. Get it off the floor right away. I don't want to get too technical with the inside corners. One side, one side, one side. There's always going to be a last side wipe. The way I determine things is where my last side wipe is going to be. It's a combination of where the gap was, which I showed you how to determine that in the very, very beginning, okay? Which side you wipe. And also when you walk into the room and your eyesight carries the wall. It's going to determine where your last wipe is going to be, all right? If you have a wall that's a very long wall, your eye catches it, and you look down the wall, but there's trim or obstruction in your sight line, that may be a good indication of where your last wipe is going to be. Vice versa. If you walk into the room and your sight line comes down this wall, okay? There's no obstruction, and you can see that wall is gonna be our last wipe, all right? I know it sounds crazy. I know it maybe it's too much, maybe it doesn't make sense, but as you continually do it over and over and over again, it will make sense. But I want you to know the why behind why I would wipe one side on the corner last and create that angle. Again, if you want to do one side, let it dry, do the other side, let it dry. That's fine. However you get there. Okay? So for right now, this is the longer wall. We have a clearer sight line to the angle, shorter wall, no obstruction. For teaching purposes, I am going to wipe this side last, which is going to create that angle or that clean corner, okay? Again, we're still putting the compound on the same. Little bit at a time, half the knife. Get down to the bottom, right? Don't be afraid to get to the bottom. Don't start up here. Don't cheat. The tape goes to the floor. Do the right job for the next guy, okay? We got a pretty uniform. I'm pretty clean up and down. Let's go to the other side. I'm stopping here. Why am I stopping here? Because this is wet and this is somewhat wet. So I'm stopping here. Can you go up into that corner where the three corners meet? Yes, you can. That's perfectly fine. I'm trying to make it easy on myself when I do the next coat, okay? So let's follow suit. Get down there, get down to the floor. Don't be stingy and start here, here, here. Go down to the floor. Create that nice angle so your trimmer, your trim carpenter can come in there and put a nice miter. We don't pronounce our R's here up in the Northeast. I'm from the city, Queens, no R. Hunter, water, no R's. Same technique. Cut the edge. Angle your knife to the inside. Same thing here. Cut the edge. Angle your knife to the inside. Same thing here. Cut the edge. And cut the edge. Okay? Now that we got those edges nice and cut, now we're able to create our corner. Nice and smooth, nice and easy. All of these techniques are the same. Angle of the knife, flatness of the knife. It's very important. It goes all the way back to the beginning video. Let's get this now, right? We're going to start here. This side first, second, last wipe here. Flatten the knife. Look how flat my knife is, okay? It's very, very, very important to keep your knife flat on these wipes, okay? If we don't keep our knife flat, this is what happens. You open your knife up and you want to drag it down, you're going to pull the compound out of the other side. Same thing I showed you when we were putting the compound for the first coat, okay? We don't want that. We're creating a nice square corner, okay? I'm actually keeping my hand down so low and I'm going to flatten it out, but you can't grab it any lower. Again, that's why I use one finger, because I have more control, right? I'm going to wipe that down, leave a little horseshoe right there for right now in the sheen. I'm going to go to the opposite side, and it's the same thing. We're going to keep that knife. I always say flatten the knife, flatten the knife, flatten the knife. Keep it very, very flat. We'll just address that in a second. You could probably pick it up a little easier now with this camera on my head. Let's keep that knife nice and flat and press, okay? Nice and flat and press. I want you to get there. Remember, we're only going to wipe this side once. Come from the bottom. It's easier for me to do it this way. I've always done it this way. And I'm going to flatten my knife and angle it. Get that corner in there nice. Create that nice angle. Now, I left a horseshoe in there. You probably can't pick it up. Why did I leave the horseshoe there? Because it's in the seam. When the corner dries, I'm going to give it a quick scrape or a sand. If I don't, for some reason, get that horseshoe out adequately enough, when I come through with my polish coat on the seam, I'm going to eat up that horseshoe. That's why we strategically leave that in the seam, okay, the horseshoe. Maybe you have a different name. Maybe it's a lap mark. I don't know. We call it a horseshoe because it resembles a horseshoe. Just saying. Don't beat me up. That's what we call it. Last wipe, this side. Corner in, flatten the knife. This is really just creating that angle. I'm hardly putting any pressure on my knife at this point. I'm going straight down. Okay? I'm going to come back up and I'm going to leave the horseshoe in the seam. Okay? A couple times. No pressure. All the way up. And we leave that horseshoe in there. You could probably pick up, there's a little bit of, maybe the gap is not filled. Again, that's why we want to fill the gap, you know, on the first coat. You could take a little bit of compound on your knife and get in there. Okay? It's very simple. We're in the seam. And we clean that up. We leave the horseshoe in the seam. That'll get a quick sand, polish through. You'll never know that we ended there. There you have your inside and outside corners, your caps, all right? I think we should have brought this up and maybe mentioned it a few more times. If anybody ever has any questions about the technique, about why I do things, you need more information, you could always shoot me an email. I'll be happy to answer questions, you know, general questions. I can go into some detailed questions, and it's KL Drywall Inc. 1@gmail.com. We're getting ready to get our website out there, so you'll be able to check that out soon. But, you know, I'll answer, you know, questions that are relevant, that have substance. So we're here to bring value to the beginner taper and help them get started. Explain the process to them so they know the why and the how, then the how. There we go. We got our seams done. We got our screws done. We got our inside corners done. And we got our caps done, all right? Second coated. It's nice and clean. Lines are clean. Everything's clean, right? Let's move on to our cross butts. Here we go, next sequence. We're up to the cross butts. I call them cross butts. Call them cross seams. Call them whatever you want. I call them cross butts, okay? It's when two factory edges butt each other, all right? Sometimes that's not always possible. Sometimes you have to cut the board and butt each one against each other. We like to go factory to factory. That gives us the best possible chance of success and getting those butt joints to get close together, right? However, butt joints are challenging. They always leave a hump. There's a couple of new products out there, I think we'll mention them in the future, that enable us to create a better cross butt finish. But for right now, we're gonna have to deal with what we have. This is the set that we built. I created a bunch of cross butts on a short span so we could show the teaching method here, all right? Again, 10-inch knife. I use a 10-inch for my second coat, okay? I want you to remember to always put your knife on that cross butt. We did we helped ourselves on the first coat. You see how this crossbutt looks different than this one does, okay? This one, we created a little bit of there was a hump here, all right? And what I did is on the first coat, I pre-filled over the tape to give us a chance to be successful for the second coat. I added compound here, and you can see it to float this side. What we're doing is we're beginning the process of creating a flat surface. It's very, very difficult to do on crossbutts if they're bad. This one we got pretty lucky, okay? It's got a little bit of a rock to it, not much. Let's check this one. This one is also flat, okay? This one is also flat. So we got very lucky here. A lot of times they're not flat. They have a rock. They have a high side and a low side. And that is why I pre-fill this second coat. And I always do that. I taught all my guys to do that from the very, very beginning. We would go around the home, and I told this in the beginning, we would go around the job site or the house that we were working in, and we would pre-fill one side or the other when the tape was still wet during the first coat, so it all dried together. That was the premise of that. Have it all dry together, okay? I'm constantly checking this, constantly looking to see which the high part was the low part. There's a little bit of a rock there. So we're gonna determine that this side needs to be built up a little bit more than this side to create the flat surface, all right? So let me show you how we do that. Again, our cap is not done yet. You're gonna do your crossbutt. My recommendation as a beginner and a homeowner, do your crossbutt in sequence. You do your seam first, let this dry. Do your crossbutt, let this dry, and then come through and do your cap because you can pull through. If you want to do it all together, of course, that's acceptable. Takes a little bit more finesse and technique, and we will explain that way down the line because that's a little bit more of an advanced taping application. So again, just like we showed you with the seams, you're going to get the compound on the knife, full 10 inches, and you're going to start identifying the center of your crossbutt, and you're going to pull one side. See how we're starting to create the width on this crossbutt to give us a flat surface, okay? We pull right through that seam. That's how I do it. You can stop here if you want. You can stop here if you want. I do it this way. It just creates more of a uniform finish for me. I cut the edge the same way on the seams as on the crossbutt as I did on the seams. Turn my knife in, cut the edge. I think you're starting to beginning to see that everything is repetition. Everything is pretty much the same. Once you learn how to get the mud there's the mud on the knife, it's gonna be the same each time. Let's pull it on this side now. Same thing we did on that side. You can go over it again, make sure it's nice and flat, uniform, okay? And I'm gonna want you to cut the edge. Cut it, turn the knife in, and cut. You see how we still have a little bit in the center there that we need to do? Need to coat. Get some more compound on your knife. And again, your final application of putting this compound on. And we're going back, you see those pock marks? That's in the material. We want to make sure we don't leave these pock marks. We want to get those pock marks out, okay? So now that we have the compound spread out pretty evenly, now we're going to do our finish wipes. We determine that this is the side that we need to build up. It's a little bit lower, create a flat surface. It's going to take a few wipes to do this, okay? I want you to come on this side, and I want you to come down, hardly any pressure, just wipe, okay? You see where we have those pock marks in there. That's what we were talking about earlier, identify those. We want those to be gone, okay? or as much as possible. We may not be able to eliminate them completely, but we're gonna get pretty close. We come on this side and we're gonna wipe, okay? We're gonna go back a couple more times. The cross butts are more of a finesse aspect, and we want it to be flat. So it may take us a couple of times to get it nice and flat. I like to go down the middle. Again, right side, left side, then down the middle. Pull a little bit more compound off of there. We're gonna need to pull a little bit more. I'm okay with that. It takes a couple of wipes on your butts. Here's a little trick, technique that I always showed my apprentices. Sometimes you got two sides that need compound. Maybe your crown is in the middle, okay? You can wipe it like this, and this could be your final wipe. You could leave a line on this side, and you could leave a line on this side, and that's gonna make us create a flat surface over the course of, right, this is 20 inches. And when we polish this, we're gonna be out even further, all right? That's acceptable. If you wanna leave a line there and a line there, I'm okay with that. That's gonna get sanded out. So don't be worried. When it dries, you give it a quick scrape and a light sand. This compound is very soft that I use. Doesn't take much to sand this down. However, I'm gonna show you how to leave one line on one side, okay? Because that's what we're trying to achieve on this particular crossbutt. Each crossbutt is going to be different. Hopefully we get all flat crossbutts like this. This essentially is just a seam. We got lucky, right? It's flat. Again, we're gonna go back to this side and we're gonna just gently go down our crossbutt. We're gonna eliminate as much of the pock marks as we possibly can. This material actually is really forgiving. Doesn't have as many pock marks as other materials that I've used. So that's why I choose this. And then lastly, this is going to be our last wipe. We're gonna come to the edge and look where my finger is and look where my hand is. We're literally just gliding our 10-inch knife across. We're leaving an edge. Look at the angle of my knife. And we're building up this side. We didn't build up this side, we built up this side. Okay, there's our line. When that dries, we give it a nice scrape, a quick sand, and we're ready to proceed with the third coat. Hopefully that makes sense. Cross butts are challenging. Even professionals struggle with them sometimes. That's why the comments that were made, you know, why do you have so many cross butts on a short wall? This is obviously a demo. Ideally, on a job site situation, we want as little cross butts as we possibly can. That's why we hung 16-foot boards back in the day. Only straight seams, no cross butts, but that's more technical than we need to get into. However you get there, you get there. Let's move over to this quick sealing. This little short crossbutt here, this is actually flat. So our technique on this particular seam is going to be the same as our regular seam. We're gonna spread that compound out on our hawk. You can see it. It's the same as the other ones. Repetition. Let's get our knife right into that cap. Press and pull. You see how that compound's gonna wanna fall? That's why I like my hawk. Yes, you can catch it in your other, whatever you're using to hold your compound on. You can catch it. You can catch it with your hand. You wanna catch it like this? Catch it like that. Tastes pretty good. I wouldn't eat a lot of it, but again, go back, make sure it's nice and uniform. Make sure it's nice and flat. You don't want big globs. You don't want a glob here, glob here. Like what I don't want to see is like this. I don't want to see that. I want it to be flattened, pressed in, push, nice and uniform. If you do that, you're already starting your final wipe, right? Okay, now get your knife in there. Cut the edge, right? Angle in, finger here, hands down. You're always going to push the compound into the seam on the second coat. okay? You're always going to push the compound out on the third coat. That's how we build it over consistency. 6-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch. You always go bigger, okay? Let's cut this edge. Again, finger on this side, left side now, and you're gonna push in. You're gonna cut in, cut in, cut in, cut in, right? You got both sides cut. Now, my last wipe on the ceilings, I'm really gonna drop down a lot. My hands are down here on the bottom of the knife, my fingers here. We're gonna get right in there, nice and square. Try not to leave too many globs on this, on your cap, because you're gonna come back and second coat that later. You're gonna pull this. Let's get it nice and flat. We're gonna go over this twice. First time, we're gonna kind of feel the sheetrock and pull off any excess. Look how much came off, okay? And your last wipe is going to be very flat, no pressure, and it's going to be designed to remove any of those pock marks that are in there and smooth this out and get it nice and flat. That's what we want, flat. Here we go. Look at my knife. Look at my fingers down here. My index finger is literally there. It's important. And it helps, okay? Let's get that nice and flat. Look how flat that is. And we're gonna pull, and we're gonna go through. There's no pock marks. It's nice and smooth, limited amount of sanding, and you're good to go. That's the cross butts. Let me do one in real time here, because I know Anthony wants to see that. He's very excited. You got to see the excitement on his face. It's unbelievable. I wish you were here to see it. We're gonna check every one. Always check your cross butts for a high spot, a low spot. We're very lucky here again. This cross butt is flat. It's a little rocky. Your knife is gonna tell you, tick, tick, tick. You're gonna hear it right away. This one happens to be flat as well. So we're gonna treat this just like a regular seam. Okay, we start from the bottom. This is how I start. I'm much more comfortable pulling up than I am going down. You want to go down like this? Perfectly fine. However you get it on there, get it on there. Okay, go to the bottom though, and go up. Okay. You want to finish here. You want to finish here, here. It's all fine. It's all covered. You're not humping. You're not adding. You're just being uniform. That's how I was taught, okay? I like to come down. Let's go down just to flatten, okay? The compound's already in there. Get it uniform. Same technique as I showed you earlier, folks. Cutting the edge, it's the same. You're gonna cut the edge on everything but the screws, okay? Cut the edge, turn it inside. Look where my finger is, right? It's on this side. Help yourself out. For me, it's really hard to control a knife with no finger up there, to cut the edge. I don't know how you would do that. If you do it, good for you. I mean, if it works for you, that's wonderful. I can't do it. My finger up here helps me, okay? Again, automatic, finger goes over here, cut this edge, okay? Back towards the seam. We're gonna do 2 wipes like we did up here. 2 wipes, okay? One's just gonna get it kind of uniform. And I wanna show you where my fingers are. Low on the blade, low on the handle. A little bit of debris in there, I didn't scrape it. We don't want that in there, so we're gonna pick that out, right? Last wipe, mostly to get the pock marks out. Get it nice and smooth, go to the bottom, look at how flat that is, and no pressure, okay? And we're done. I don't mind that. Different ways to finish your cross butts. Flattening them out, this is a technique. Leaving a line on either side, that's a technique. leaving one line on one side. That's a technique. Every situation is different. You'll have to address the situation on the job site. Hopefully you get lucky and you have predominantly flat cross seams. But if you don't, this is how you fix it. This is how you attempt to fix it. This is how you make it easier on the eye and maybe not so predominant when it's painted and you don't see that. That's the goal, flat and smooth, right? Like I say, repetition, flat and smooth. Let's head over, last but not least, our corner bead. I like to show this little trick. Let's see. What do I have? This is quick. I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always trying to be clean. I'm always trying to keep my work as clean as possible, okay? So moving into the corner beads. You know, you always get a little bit, this is a metal corner bead, by the way. I should clarify that. This is not a mud on, this is not a tape on, this is a metal corner bead. For ease of operations, I use the metal. There's mud on, there's tape on, there's different applications. I am from the city, in the Northeast, Manhattan, Queens, Long Island. This was what was mostly used. Now Trimtex has great products, you know, mud on beads and stuff like that. That's perfectly fine if you want to go that route. I totally get it. And there's nothing wrong with it, okay? So for the metal bead application, even if you clean it as best as you can, okay, on the corner, there's always going to be a little bit of dried compound on there. And when you apply your second coat, you don't want any of that dried compound getting into your compound because as I've shown you, the debris, it creates track lines, it creates havoc. We don't want the havoc, okay? So what I do is I have a sanding sponge. This thing is old, older than dirt. It's not as old as me, but dirt, it's pretty old. I just take this real quick. This has nothing left to it. You could use a stick. You could use anything really just to clean this real quick. And I always do this ahead of time because I don't want that debris in my compound. And I just go give it a little brush on the corner, all the way down, okay? All the way down. Make sure that corner is nice and clean, right? May take a couple times. That's it, nice and clean. And I do that before I do the polish coat as well. Very simple. Like I said, you could take a piece of wood lath too, or a piece of trim that's laying around and just go whoosh, whoosh, and clean this edge up. Because at the end of the day, you want this edge nice and clean, you know? So let's go ahead and get the compound ready. I will say this, I am choosing on the second coat of the corner bead to use my 10-inch knife. You can use the 8-inch knife. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with the 8-inch knife. Again, the goal here is we're gonna go 6, 8, 10. I am comfortable using my 10. However, I only use a portion of the knife, okay? I don't use the full 10 inches. I only use about half, all right? That'll give me the opportunity on the third coat to flare it out even more. And I will, on the third coat, on the corner bead, I would use my 10-inch knife as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. If you want to use your 6-inch knife to second coat this, you can do that too. I find it slightly harder. But if you look at my 10-inch knife, I'm only kind of using about 8 inches of it. So, but I'm just more comfortable using it. And that's why I choose to use it. My handle's worn out nice. Okay. Again, we're just applying the compound on here to get a nice bed coat, second coat. The process is the same though. Once we get it on there, we got to cut the edge. Same as the seams. You're cutting the edge. And again, cut it on an angle so you're pushing the compound in, which is going to be opposite of the final coat when you're going to push out, okay? I want you on the second coat to push the compound in. Let's go back to this side. Again, I'm only using half my, maybe about 8, 9 inches of the 10-inch knife. And that's only what I'm used to. Use your 6, use your 8, that's fine. Okay? I'm a little short on compound. Let's go back to the bucket because that's what we do. We always go back to the bucket. What are you doing? Going back to the bucket. I'm going back to the bucket. When are you not? Never. Always going back to the bucket. Here we go. Let's go to the bottom. Let's pull up. Okay? The wall's moving a little bit because it's not fastened to the floor because this is a set that I built in my garage. Just so everybody knows. Here we go. Let's get it on there. All right? If you have been following along, this is no different than putting compound on all of your seams. Okay? You're going to cut the edge again. Come down. Cut the edge. I personally always give it a nice little, to get all of that compound off so I'm not dragging that along. And now we're going to go for a final wipe. Okay? See how I angle my knife in? No pressure. Come to the bottom. Wipe up. Take a look at it. How's it look? There's a little bit of debris in there. There's some pock marks. Some pock marks up there. We are going over the corner bead with very little pressure. We want to create an outside angle now. That helps our trimmers when they come and put their base molding on. If I push too hard, okay, watch what happens. I'm pulling all of that compound out and I'm creating a hollow, which is not creating a nice crisp outside corner. That's what we want. So when we are pulling our final wipe on the corner bead, we are applying very little pressure. Okay? And the reason being is we want to fill that in so it's flat. Okay? The corner beads are made to be filled in with compound. If that makes sense. So very little pressure. Go down. I'm okay with that. We got a little bit of pock marks in there. You want to one more time? No pressure, very flat on the knife. That took out most of the pock marks, okay? Coming up, same thing, got pock marks in there. I'm gonna pull it out. We got no debris, edges look okay. Give a quick clean. I'm always constantly on a corner bead, just always scraping and cleaning it. That's just a habit that I have developed over the course of years and years and years. So here we go. Again, very little pressure here. Very little pressure. Again, there's a little bit of debris in there. I always bring that up because as the temperature gets warmer, stuff dries faster. You're always going to pick up a little bit of debris in your compound. You want to get that out. Staying clean is important. I think I've emphasized that enough. Okay? You can turn a knife. A little bit of a bubble there. We'll put some compound there again. Coming up, we're going to pull it up. Very little pressure. First run. Look and see. Looks good. Let's go over it one more time. Zero pressure. Just pulling the pock marks out. Okay? Now, cleaning that edge up as best as you can. You're going to leave a little bit on there, but that's what the sponge was for, right? My horseshoe is a little bit high. Is it the end of the world? No. If you want, make your last wipe pulling down, no pressure, and leave the horseshoe in that seam. You're going to scrape it, you're going to sand it, and then when you pull this seam, you're going to eat that horseshoe up, and it will disappear. All right? So there you have the process of applying the second coat. We needed a little bit of time in between applications of specific aspects of it, the seams, the cross butts, the corners, the caps, to let it dry so you could pull through it, not struggle, okay? You can 100% do it all together at one time if you have the finesse and you have advanced to that point, not a problem. We do wet all the time. That's how I do it. If I go onto a job site and I'm gonna second coat it, I'm not going there to pull all of the seams and waiting a day for it to dry and coming back and pulling the corners and waiting for it to dry and then pulling the bead, waiting for it to dry. I'm doing everything in one shot. So another choice of my material has a little bit more plaster of Paris in it. It sets up and dries a little bit faster. Doesn't dry 100%, but it dries enough so I can continue with my coating. It's important. So piggybacking off of what I just said, wet, right? We want to go to the job. So this would be, I'm going to do a little advanced right here. This is wet, corner beads wet, okay? Different angles of the knife, different pressures of the knife. That's going to be important. This is what I do, okay? We pull it through the same way, okay? However, your pressures on your knives are going to be different, all right? You're going to go to the top. Same idea, bottom, top, bottom. However, we are pulling everything wet. This is wet. That's wet, that's wet, that's wet. A little bit more difficult, you know? And as a beginner, I don't recommend you trying this until you get really, really comfortable with the angles of your knives, with the pressures of your knives. And if you want to sand the crap out of it, by all means, go ahead. But I don't like the sand. So that's why, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna cut the edges, but we're not gonna cut the edges where we're going through the wet, okay? Because if we did that, we would put a giant line in and we would pull all of the compound out of here. We would pull the compound out of here and the compound out of here, okay? So we're only gonna cut where there's no wet. And it's the same process. It's the bottom, top, bottom, okay? Now look at that. You see all of that? Didn't come out. I didn't put enough compound in there on the first pass. It's the end of the world? No, get back in there. Throw some more compound in there. Okay? Let's go again. First pass. Bottom. Top. See that little line there? I'm okay with that. That will sand out. That's not the end of the world. You can get that line to dissipate even more if you go over this again, but it's not necessary. Flatten your knife out even more. Keep the pressure towards the inside of the wall, and you'll take that line right out, okay? Last wipe. Last wipe. A couple times here. But let's pull that right through that cross button, right through that corner bead. You don't even see the lines. It's a little bit, when that dries, I'll give it a scrape and I'll sand it out and it'll be good to go, all right? That's just a quick little advanced technique. I don't recommend it for beginners. Just stick with, you know, waiting for stuff to set up and dry. Make your life a hell of a lot easier. You won't have to worry about digging the compound out. It's more to think about as you progress, as you learn, as you do it over and over and over again, maybe on your next house, the next house after that, or maybe even you go out and you start your own drywall company. Good for you. The more the merrier. Come on in. The buckets are fine. And there you have it. Hopefully, we explained it with simplicity to give you the confidence to continue moving forward with your project. I want to emphasize the fact that I am here to just make it easier for you to attempt this in your own home, okay? This is what works for me. There are many, many, many methods out there where people use, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with those methods. There's nothing wrong with the guy who's been doing it for 40 years. Well, maybe he's been putting the tape on backwards. I don't know. Is it okay? Of course it's okay. Could it go bad? It could go bad. But putting the tape on backwards is not the worst thing in the world, right? I mean, it's fixable until it's not. You know, would you go out wearing your shirt backwards? It'll work, but would you do it? I don't know. That's up for you guys to decide, right? But this is what works for me. I've been doing this for 40 plus years. I still work every day. And I'm not here, again, to tell anybody what's right and what's wrong, okay? I'm here to show you what has worked and what continues to work for me. There's a lot of stuff out there that you guys can pick and choose. But I am grateful for all the wonderful comments that I received. I will continue to do the best that I can to respond to all of them as best as I can. Again, if you have any really detailed questions, hit us up on the email. We're working on our website. You know, again, I hope this helps. I really do. I hope this gives you the confidence to go ahead and tackle the project. I don't like to hear the stories where people come in and they do a terrible job on people's homes and, you know, they gave them the money and then the people disappeared and now you got to pay more to get people to fix it. You know, it's heartbreaking to me to hear those stories. And I can be honest, in 2025, I fixed more jobs than ever before in my taping career. So that tells me that there are people out there that are calling themselves professionals that are not really truly professionals. And we need to weed them out. And, you know, we need to make sure that the homeowners and the DIYers who are hiring people like that, you know, don't go through that kind of stress and don't, you know, get robbed and ripped off and have someone who does shoddy workmanship come in their home. Attempt it yourself, do it yourself. Everything's fixable. You can fix it. Give yourself the confidence to do it and take pride in your work. And I promise you, over the course of time, you will get better and better and better. You know, in closing, I just want to also extend my gratitude for everyone who has commented positively, positive comments on the YouTube channels, the Facebook channels, the Instagram, the TikToks, everything that we launched on. It has been overwhelming to hear that so many people are getting value out of this, and that's what kind of prompted us to move ahead. I hear everybody, they wanted the second coat. Here's the second coat. We went ahead and we've filmed and put this on video so you guys can continue from first coat to second coat. The third coat will be next. So with that, in conclusion of that, you will have knowledge and the wherewithal to handle the project, first coat, second coat, third coat, okay? The basics of the process. Are there gonna be things that come up that maybe you never seen before? Of course there is. That's like anything else, right? You gotta learn how to hold the tools, learn how to angle the tools. It's all important. It all ties together. So if there's anything that people would like to see or want me to cover in a video, please feel free to reach out, subscribe to us, tell us in the comments, hey, can you show us this? Can you show us that? We're struggling with this. And if it's a more detailed question and you don't want to advertise yourself out there on social media, I totally understand that too. Reach out through an email. Just hit us up with an email and we'll get back to you. If we don't get back to you right away, don't get scared. It'll take a day or two to get back, but we will get back to you and I will do my best to get back to everyone. It's really, really hard to, but once I eliminate the negative comments, I'm happy to get back to everybody, you know? But I hope this has helped people. That's my goal. I'm here to help. I'm here to build people up. I'm here to give back. I just want people to be confident to do the work in their own home. And please hit us up on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. This way we can follow. We know what's going on. If we're doing our job correctly, are we showing you the right things? Are we showing you the right techniques? Do you want to see something different? Do you want to see outside corners, inside corners? Do you want to see patches? Do you want to see painted surfaces? Do you want to see nail pops? Do you want to see stress cracks? All of that stuff ties together. I want to get to it all, but if there's something that we see that needs more attention, after we finish the third coat, we'll jump right on that. Feel free, reach out. Don't be afraid, don't be scared, and good luck with your home project. And we're here if you need us. Hit us up with questions.